So you return to the office with a stack of work to do?
Not yet, next week.
Oh, you're not back to work
No,
yet?
not
Oh,
yet.
okay.
I've been communicating by email, doing some stuff, telecommuting kind of deal, but officially not on the clock till next week.
Okay, so that means the pile gets even deeper.
Well, I kind of told my partner, I said I expect to come back to a clean desk.
And he
said-
laughs?
Yeah, he kind of chuckled. So far, so good. Children Public's behaving. At least as far as cataclysmic events. We've had a rash of those in January, March, one in April. Hasn't been too bad since I left. Sir? Going to lean on you tonight, if that's okay.
Absolutely,
Awesome.
love it.
I appreciate that. They could, Robbie, have I asked you to do it yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
I don't think.
So you guys have both done it. Chad, have you done the pledge yet? You two guys at some point in time.
I mean, I've done the pledge plenty of times. I'm good.
As a council member this year.
Forget it. Oh, guest, never mind.
Yes.
Using guest.
Sounded like it.
BP stuff?
How'd you get on the staff?
I don't know.
Test. I hear something.
There.
Thank you.
What's the password? Oh,
Must have already had it. I don't
no.
know. Ask Tweet.
Are you on the guest or are you on the,
I'm on my cell. Down.
oh,
Depriving my kids of movie watching.
what, because you're,
Burning the cell down.
Hey, Steve.
Our kids are back, but I know that it's still.
What's the password for the Wi-Fi?
go ahead, Vince. We're good.
Chad, are you good?
But,
Ready to roll?
Yeah.
I don't know if you were having IT
All right, no, I'm good.
But I may not have just
Steve?
Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to the regular meeting of the Villa Park City Council. Hereby call the meeting to order. Steve, will you please call the roll?
Okay, Councilman Colacott,
Here.
Councilwoman Miles,
Here,
Councilman Zimmerman,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Pitts,
Present?
Mayor Rossini,
Here.
all present.
Given that we did not have closed session, there's nothing to report for our city attorney. Next on the items is the pledge of allegiance. Councilwoman Miles, would you do us the honor?
absolutely. Everyone please stand. Place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this time, I would ask all those in attendance to please silence your cell phones or turn them off if possible. The Villa Park City Council and staff welcome you to this meeting, and we encourage your participation. If you wish to address the City Council, please complete and submit a speaker card to the city clerk before the scheduled meeting time. Speaker cards can be found at the entrance to the City Council chambers. Speakers will be limited to a time period of 5 minutes. Presentations. First on of our presentations is the Orange Unified School District. Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members, community members. Thank you for allowing us to come here today and give an update on some questions that we've had on our field project over at Villa Park High School. So just to get down to where we are now, we finished the field in February. Our contractor finished the track portion. There were delays due to the rains that we had. It was not a great time to be doing outdoor construction, as you may know. So we had some struggles keeping the schedule. We were going to open in late December, but because of the heavy rains, the track portion could not be done when there was a wet surface, so we had to let that dry out. So that was the delay that we experienced from February December to February. As it sits now, when we saw the finished product, we noticed some undulations onto the field. So when we noticed those undulations, we immediately did not pursue opening the field to our students. Just to reiterate our schedule was that we were going to have the project finished in terms of the field, turf, and the track, and then open to students only, not to the public, just to the students so that they could practice and use the field. Once the summer hits, our plan was to close those fields again, do some accessibility ADA work through a DSA project, and then open up to the community and to our students for community sponsor or district sponsor community events, and to our students and athletics in the fall. And that's still our plan. We still are on schedule for that. However, we did not want to open our field to students at this time because of the undulation that we saw on the field. So we've not opened it up to our students at this point. We're doing additional testing. So you may have noticed we pulled back some of the turf and we have some equipment out there. And I know that people have asked questions of the mayor and others about that project. And that's where we sit today, is that we don't have a lot of information because we haven't received all the testing results back. But because of those undulations and some of the things that we saw in the field and track, we did not want to open it up to athletics, given that it could result in a student injury or staff injury or community injury for that matter. So that's the status as of today of the field. So I'm happy to answer any questions regarding the process. But we're on schedule still in all of our minds in the district to open up to athletic events and potential community uses in the fall. And that would be around October, mid-October, we believe.
Anybody have any questions?
My understanding was that once it was open, that it was going to be open for residents to use, because a lot of our residents for years have been, walking the track and so forth.
Once the second phase is complete, yes. Because we still have to do a project that is required by DSA to provide the correct accessibility to those fields. So once you touch them, once we started to construct the field, we need to make sure that the field itself has the correct access now that we've touched it and opened it up. In the past, since the field sat for years and years and years without any construction, it was fine not to address that issue as it was, not, like I said, not touched. But now that we've completed the upgrade to synthetic turf and track, we need to provide the correct accessibility. So the plan was always to close it down, and we brought the plan to this council as well to the fall, and then we would open up in the fall of 19 to the community and community-sponsored events as needed.
It's been a couple of months now since you've discovered that there were undulations. What is your schedule going forward? When do you expect to have enough information to proceed on taking whatever corrective measures and?
Right. We're looking at that now. We hope within the next month to work out all the issues in terms of the testing. And then we will finish the project on the field portion and work towards, we're actually going out to bid for the ADA portions of the work for this summer. So we're currently in that process.
Okay, but what's holding you up now is this, the undulations.
It's not going to hold up any of the process for the ADA accessibility projects. Those are still going on per schedule. It'll go in the same time frame. So we hope to wrap up any issues at all with this field over the summer and open up in the fall, as we mentioned to this council and to our community members.
Okay. Yeah, it's very attractive to many of us residents who enjoyed it before the construction started.
It turned out very nice. We're very proud of the project. I just think we need to make sure that it's safe enough for our students. So, and then given all of the weather that we received, that we're not hastily letting people onto the track and field before doing the proper testing. So to answer your question fully, I hope by the end of this month we will, meaning the end of May, we would have solved all the issues and started any kind of mitigation towards any of the undulation issues that we've seen.
Okay. Will you be addressing the new science building project and?
I can for sure.
Yeah, I'm sure we'd all be interested to hearing what's going on. We can see there's a lot of construction going on over there right now.
Definitely. So we are going to be demolished. We've moved students out of the 300 building into portable classrooms, and that was done on April the 2nd was the move, and then they started classes on April the 8th. So the interim housing is in place, students are in place in that interim housing, and we're moving forward towards demolishing that building here in the middle of May. So we're thinking around the 7th, 8th of May, that building would be demolished. So that's something that we're going to videotape via drone footage, and we're going to make available to the community via our website. We can also give a copy to the city if you'd like to put it on your website as well, Steve. However you want to market that, but our communications lab, PIO, will be working with the site staff to make sure that there's a nice video, a nice presentation. We'd love to have people come out and watch the demo. It's going to take a few days, but if we figured we'd put it on a time lapse and make it a nice edited video, a drone shot video, that it will be a good result for the community to see. Not much to see from standing across the street or standing on the campus. It'll go down, I mean, the building will go down very quickly, I think within probably a day or two.
Using a crane?
Not using a crane, just an earth mover slash excavator will knock down the walls. So it won't be heavy duty, it's only one story. So it's actually a very, very quick process. A lot quicker if anyone in the room would see the historical building being demolished, a lot quicker than that was done, because we had to take very careful charge of that project. But in this particular case, it should go down very easy. Once that's completed, they'll start work on excavation and shoring for the new project, the science building, and that will continue all the way until next year. Over the summer, this summer, we'll be not having summer school, so to make sure that we can accommodate some of the construction, so there won't be too much summer school programs going on. There may be a few programs with athletics and other things, but for the most part, we'll try to limit the amount of students on campus. And then the traffic works that we're looking at doing for the front of the school will be done in the following summer. So not this summer, but the following summer. So we've taken care to put back our driveway that we took out. We took out a driveway that's going to be in the footprint of the building. We've replaced that with a temporary driveway. So the same conditions exist at the site as currently, as was prior to the building being cordoned off for demo.
That's one of the original buildings, correct? Built around 1965?
It is. Actually, you know what? It is the second phase of buildings. I believe it was built in 64, and the others were built in earlier.
Oh, okay.
67, and I think 64 were the earlier. So it was right after, but it was, yeah, in the 60s, correct.
Yeah. Typically, construction back in that era, particularly with schools, they used a lot of asbestos. Have you?
We have a abatement going on right now as we speak.
Yeah,
So
I'm
that's part of the
concerned
demo.
that our residents adjacent are not exposed to asbestos.
They are not exposed. We have a full containment in the areas. It's mostly flooring. There's a little bit of pipe fitting and some drywall mud, but it was all contained within the building structure. So we had a full containment around that ever since we started. I believe it was April 15th that we started that work.
Very good.
Yeah. So we've taken very careful measures to make sure that it's correctly contained.
Okay.
And that work is and the AQMD has been over there. We've had monitoring, and it's just about complete.
One of the features of the new project of your redevelopment was to put in a four-way stop at basically the intersection of Nichols and Taft to go into the campus.
Yes.
Would there be a possibility for you to implement that sooner rather than later? Because that would reduce some of the traffic hazards for
Correct.
students that need to turn, that are westbound on Taft that want to turn into the campus.
Unfortunately, this summer we were hoping to do that project, but because we had to go back and get some additional surveys done, when we looked at the level of the building versus the level of where the lot is, it was determined that we had to seriously grade out that area in order to make it work for the new building that will be there, and also the future work to the 200 building that we're looking at in the second phase. But because of that, the work has been delayed until next summer. So it will be next summer by the time we get that four-way stop in. We had to take the plans, redo them, take them back into DSA to make sure that, like I said, the grade was correct. So that work will be done in summer of 20, prior to the opening of the building.
Okay. One last item I have, although it's not in Villa Park, what's the status of the Fred Kelly Stadium reconstruction?
It's going as planned and on schedule. We will be opening up by the time graduation starts next year.
Oh, wonderful.
So it'll be most likely April to May by the time we open up officially.
You'll have a new stadium with new bleachers and all that?
Correct.
Wonderful.
New bleachers. There are 8 buildings on the site, or 7 buildings on the site, which are made of snack bar, restroom buildings, and team rooms as well.
Okay, great.
So anything that I mentioned here, updates, are all available on our website, as well as we've put out press releases on the field project to local media agencies as well as our website. So if any resident posts any kind of question to you, you can tell them to go to our news section of our website, which will immediately address, and it says Villa Park Field Status Update as of 4/12. I think that's when it came out. So direct anyone to that site, and they'll see exactly what I told you today, the reasons for the delay, and our plans. And then it'll also show you any of the updates on Measure S and what we're planning to do with Fred Kelly Stadium, and the updates on Fred Kelly Stadium as well. So we've been updating our information pretty well on the website. So happy to have you check it out on there, or let residents know that they can get information at any time on that website.
I have a few questions if the rest of the council doesn't have any. Wait till that's over with. Somebody's ringing the doorbell apparently. First of all, I want to say thank you for coming here this evening. I think it's incredibly important that we have you at our meetings on a somewhat regular basis, perhaps not every month, but at least quarterly, to give us an update on what's going on with the progress, with Measure S, funded projects, the field, and I was very, very pleased that you accepted our invitation, and Dr. Hanson and I had spoke about that, and she's fulfilling her word, and I greatly appreciate that. I have, as you alluded to, received a number of inquiries from residents, non-residents, parents, neighbors, people that are walking by, wondering what was going on with the field, and I'm hoping that we can put that speculation to rest here this evening. I've heard everything from the goalposts were not CIF regulation to, as you alluded to, undulations in the track, to the curvature of the football field did not meet CIF guidelines, or the track did meet CIF guidelines, or there was a lack of drainage, this, that, and whatever. And I was hoping that specifically we could address some of those issues. I understand there's undulations, but is it more than just undulations? I've heard residents say it's going to be a complete redo, which I can't imagine that would be the case, but I was hoping to maybe get out in front of this and give you guys that opportunity.
Without the full testing results back, I can't tell you specifically what the mitigation is at this point.
Okay.
But we are looking into, and specifically, you know, with in relation to the goalposts, they are CIF regulation goalposts. And the field itself, is the way it was designed, is regulation. There's a good drainage system. We made sure there was an issue with the drainage system during the rains that we were able to take care of right away. So we have no concerns with the drainage system on the site.
Excellent.
As it's built now. But I think it was more or less, like I said, the site investigation, just visual investigation, caused us to worry. And that's when we said, okay, we're not going to be hasty and just open so that we can appease because everyone from the athletics department obviously want to get on there, take their teams, have the fun, but we want to make sure that it's safe enough and there's no issues. Dave?
Good evening. I was on the field and inspected the field. Trust me, no one, our kids, our community, want to be on this field. The other fields that we've completed, we've been told as you're flying into John Wayne, you can see the field logo. So there's a lot of attention. And since my first board meeting, I heard we had 20 speakers talk about the fields and the need for the fields. But we want to make sure that when we release the field and when I sign off on the invoices, that our community can use the fields, they're safe, and that what the contractor was contracted for and to do, that the work was completed as contracted. And we're not at that point yet. And Mr. Harvey's going through the process, working and making sure that we have all the testing done to make sure that we know what fixes need to happen. But I can assure you that when we sign off on the invoice and sign off on for the notice of completion, that the field will be exactly what we've contracted for, and everyone's going to be happy with the results.
I'm very, very glad to hear that. I think our residents and those folks in Orange that attend Villa Park High School or the club sporting events, certainly the staff members, as you alluded to, the athletic department is chomping at the bit. You know, we have such an amazing high school and great students and staff and teachers. We just want to make sure that we dispel any rumors that are untrue, and it's great to hear that a lot of that is just speculation and conjecture. And I wanted to make sure that you guys were aware that that kind of stuff's out there, and as of today, we're putting a lot of that to rest. So thank you so much for coming. Does anybody in the audience have any questions? If not, thank you. Look forward to hearing an update when you have one. So
Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
you too. Next up, Orange County Sheriff's Department, Lieutenant Rich.
Good evening, Mayor Rosini, Mayor Pro Tem Pitts, council members, city staff, and residents of Villa Park. I am Lieutenant Rich, and it is my pleasure to present the March 2019 crime statistics for the city of Villa Park. In the month of March in 2019, there were 5 reported Part 1 crimes in Villa Park. 3 of those were petty thefts from vehicles. All 3 of those were items taken during the night from vehicles parked in driveways or in city streets that were left unlocked. There was 1 reported vehicle burglary off of a Crestview Circle, and that was a window smash to a rear window where a television was left in a vehicle overnight, and that television was stolen. There was 1 reported stolen vehicle on the 9,000 block of Feather Hill Drive. That was taken sometime during the night. The resident woke up early in the morning noticed that her vehicle was missing. Fortunately, it was equipped with a GPS tracking system. Within 20 minutes of reporting that to the Sheriff's Department, she was able to activate that locating system, and deputies from North Patrol and our canine units did recover the vehicle occupied by 3 subjects in the city of Santa Ana. All 3 of those subjects went to jail for theft-related charges, narcotics-related charges, identity theft-related charges, as well as having other stolen property, some of that stolen property from some of the other thefts that had occurred in the city of Villa Park earlier in the month and the month previous. So hopefully that incident did curb some of the thefts that have been occurring in the city. There were also 2 traffic accidents reported, one at Nichols and Taft. That was a injury traffic collision with a subject transported to the hospital with non-life threatening injuries. And there was a non-injury traffic accident at Santiago and Wanda. Deputies issued 32 traffic citations, 7 parking citations, and responded to 260 calls for service. Of those, 191 were observed or officer initiated, and 69 were assigned. That is all I have to report on, other than the fact that I would like to thank the city manager, city staff, and the council members that attended the Sheriff's Medal of Valor ceremonies earlier this month, and were able to sit by with me while the Sheriff's Department had the opportunity to reward some of our deputies for the great work they do and some of their heroic actions. So thank you to all those who were able to attend. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Understand there was a theft up in the northeast part of Villa Park last night.
There was a residential burglary last night. I did not report on that because that would be under this month. But yes, sir, there was. It was what's been going on in many of the surrounding areas and people. It was a house where the residents were on vacation. People probably going around knocking on doors, which is very common to see if someone's home. When they find a home that they think they might like to go into and they realize that it is not occupied, they go around the backyard and they force entry. They either throw something through a rear slider or kick in the back door, and they're in and out in probably less than 5 minutes. So they were able to elude capture, and there was some jewelry stolen. We're not exactly sure at this time the amount of the loss. I don't want to put the location out because those residents are still
Right.
away.
I had an incident myself this morning. Over the past several years, we've made repeated requests to the Sheriff Department to provide a greater presence in the school zones, particularly around Villa Park Elementary and Serrano Elementary, Sarah Villa area along Serrano, because there's so much traffic in such a small area. The parents typically are in a rush and not very patient. And particularly as you drive down Serrano, you'll see, I believe it's 8 no U-turn signs. But we have very little deputy presence, and people routinely make illegal U-turns. I was out for a walk this morning, and during the school drop-off period, right around 8 o'clock, and was almost run over by a gentleman doing a U-turn right in front of the intersection of Dodson and Serrano. And actually, when he came to a stop, the no U-turn sign was probably about 4 feet from the front of his hood. But I almost got killed. I looked up, and there were 2 other vehicles doing U-turns right in front of me. Anyway, there were also some students in the crosswalk. They could have been injured as well or killed. If we could have greater deputy presence down on those streets, around Villa Park Elementary in particular, and Serrano, Saravella, that'd be very helpful. I think it's probably our highest danger zone for the city. The chance of greatest, injury to particularly our student residents. So.
I understand that, and I will continue to ask the deputies to be out there during those hours, particularly when people are coming to school and leaving school. I know they typically are. Deputy Benzie is typically not around those locations. He's out by the high school because of the
Yeah.
number of high school drivers that we have. So I've asked him to keep his enforcement geared towards the high school. But I will, again, ask the deputies to continue their enforcement. And if they haven't been out there, to pick it up.
Yeah, we rarely see them.
Oh, well, that is good to hear, and I will do what I can to remedy that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Lieutenant, I wanted to personally thank you. 5 crimes in a month is quite remarkable. The 32 citations, 7 parking citations, the self-generated activity by our deputies is something that we have not had in the past, and I think it's an important part of community policing. And I thank you, and I think the new group of deputies that you have working for you, underneath you, as well as Deputy Benzie, and I'm very confident that we're getting a great public service from you and your deputies, and certainly appreciate that little extra assistance around the schools during the drop-off time. But thank you so much. We're very blessed to have you.
Thank you, Mayor. That's glad to hear. I'm glad to hear that, if I may. And I might say that, part of the reason why the crime stats are so low is, the citizens do a very good job of reporting things when they see something that doesn't look right. They're very willing to call the Sheriff's Department and ask our deputies to come out there. And also they have the great support of the city staff and the city council. So we all keep working together the way we have been. Hopefully Villa Park will stay the utopian society that it is.
Lieutenant Rich, I have a question for you. Is there anything, I've noticed since I've been on council, there seems to be a rash of, break-ins into automobiles where people do not lock their cars. And is there anything else that you can suggest that we might do or sponsor as a city to help remind people to lock their cars at night? Because I've had friends left their cars open, they were ransacked, and one gentleman had his wallet stolen, left his wallet in the car. But is there anything else that we could do to potentially help remind people to do it other than the feeder and some of the other things that we're doing?
Sir, I am sure that everyone in the city of Villa Park is probably watching this on TV right now, glued to it. So us getting up here and talking about it, I'm sure we'll get that message out there. But, the public service announcements through the city website and through the homeowners association, and I'm sorry, all the other things that we have going on in the city. And I am sorry, the Neighborhood Watch program, there we go, that's what I was looking for, is a very good way to get all that information out. And I can also have Anitu, our crime prevention analyst, get with the city and try to get out some more public messaging to help with that.
Okay.
And that's one of the downfalls of living in such a safe society, is you feel very comfortable when you go to
Yep.
bed at night that you don't have to lock yourself in and protect yourself as much as you would if you weren't living in such a safe
Now, the
community.
vehicle that was stolen, was that left open and keys in it, or did they just?
It was left open and the spare key was left in the vehicle. So it was probably someone doing what they're doing and going through and looking for an unlocked vehicle, and they found the keys.
Okay.
Yes. Fortunately, very fortunately, had a GPS system in there, and we were able to recover it quickly before it was damaged, and hopefully it helps, or I know it helped solve a couple other crimes, and hopefully it kept some of these crimes from occurring in the future, because the people that are behind it are where they belong, and that's at the Orange County Jail. So hopefully we can keep them there for a little while.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Appreciate all you do.
Next, Orange County Fire Authority. Battalion Chief Mike, is it Blonde? Blonde. All right. Welcome.
Mayor, City Council. I want to apologize. I don't have anything prepared for you to report on for this cycle. As you know, you've been without a division chief for a while. I actually work in the same division over in Placentia, Yorba Linda. And one of my coworkers is going to be your new division chief, Phil Johnson. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to meet him yet, but I can assure you he's an outstanding gentleman. Very good firefighter, great family man, good friend, and I would suspect you'll be very happy with him.
Well, I think that the Fire Authority is doing an excellent job. I had occasion today to send a note to Deputy Chief, forgive me, his name's escaping me, but Deputy Chief, yes, Anders, thank you, and Chief Zeller, about Chief Johnson's appointment or selection to be our new division chief, and I look forward to meeting with him hopefully this week. And I sent him an email with a number of different priorities that we have been working on with Chief Kovacs, and I appreciate the words that you are of support for Chief Johnson. Hopefully in the very near future we'll have Chief Fennessy here to introduce him. Hopefully maybe next month, depending upon his schedule. Of course, he's got a few other cities that he has responsibility over. So welcome and thank you. I have a few other comments, but I think unless we have any other questions about the Fire Authority, just keep doing good work and stay safe.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Villa Park Library. Shauna.
Good evening. We have been so lucky to have 2 bonus staff members at the library for the last month. They know how lucky they are to be here. They're just with us while their libraries are being renovated, but it's given us a lot of extra time with our schedule to get out and visit the schools. We've done a lot of outreach over the last month. We've been at Villa Park Elementary. We've been at the high school a couple of times. We were able to attend the middle school open house, and tomorrow night we're heading over to Villa Park High School for their open house. So that's been really fun, and we're trying to work on building partnerships with the schools. The principals have been really supportive, and we're excited about having extra people to help us do that for a little while. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and the library is partnering with the Central Orange County Well Program. They'll have a table at the library for 2 days, for a couple of hours on May 2nd and May 4th in the afternoon. And they're also offering a program for our teens. It's on stress management. If you think back about when you were a teen, there's not a lot more stressful than going through middle school and high school. Finals coming up, so we're excited they're going to be out here doing a program. And in May, we're offering 5 different classes using a 3D printer. Some of the kids have had a chance to get a hold of a 3D printer and use it, but we're offering programs for teens and adults. We'll be using Tinkercad. It's a web-based design software. You can make your own keychain. So we have to ask people to register for this program because we're limited on supplies and space, but we are offering 5 classes, so everybody has a chance to participate. I won't be able to attend your next meeting, so I'm going to give you a little bit of early information about our summer reading program. It starts on June 17th, and our Friends of the Library has funded programs and incentives for all ages. So we'll have programs for children, for teens, and for adults. The theme this year, it's a really fun theme. We've been able to get some creative ideas for, it's called Showtime. So it's Showtime at the library. And one of the things we've done is book a classical guitarist. His name is Andre Geraldo, and he's really amazing. He will be here in July, and he'll be sharing music from Brazil, France, Argentina, and Russia. And he's not only a great performer, he really puts it into a historical context. He'll take a break between sets, and it's really educational. So it's a family-friendly program. You're all welcome to attend. We're also planning an open mic night, so that's for our teens, and we're gonna kind of have it America's Got Talent style format, only with positive feedback. And if you're interested in being one of our celebrity judges, let me know, or you can be a guest talent. So we're excited about that, and that will be near the end of July. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Really
for all you
appreciate
do.
it.
Thank you.
Next, we have councilmember meeting attendance reports. And first, we have Orange County Mosquito Vector Control District.
Mayor, I have made at your request copies of the minutes for the last 3 meetings, start December, January, February, March, actually 4 meetings. And those are available here. Should anyone be interested, I have those.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Next, we have Orange County Senate.
Sorry. I went ahead, I didn't know you were going to make copies. Can I just give some bullet points from some of the last
By all means.
minutes? So I went on to the vector control, and I just wanted to communicate, this is from the March meeting because they didn't post the April ones yet, but Per the minutes from Orange County Vector Control, West Nile virus and invasive Aedes mosquitoes, they have found West Nile virus positive mosquito samples collected at the district office, which I think is important. And then they also reported that because of the heavy rains, they're expecting a 20% increase in the mosquitoes. And also they mentioned about the red imported fire ants, and that those are considered an exotic pest, and that the residents should not, if found, should not try and eradicate themselves, and that they need to call Orange County Vector Control. But that the mosquitoes they're finding, the Aedes have now come into 4 different species, and those are the ones that bite at the ankles, so they're faster, more agile, and those are the ones that carry the West Nile virus. Those are the ones that carry the Zika virus. The regular ones that are indigenous to Southern California carry the West Nile. So just to be very diligent on standing water and treating the pools.
Thank you.
And if you don't mind, Mayor, just going forward, if I'm more than happy, I plan to just kind of look through the minutes at the next meetings and just give the updates for what's important.
I would not have a problem with that. I
Perfect.
appreciate your diligence on the matter. And Steve, we will have that up on the feeder, correct? Of that information and
We'll
potentially
put a
on the
link
website.
on the minutes. I don't know that we'll put it in the feeder, but we'll put the link on our website.
Thank you. I want to make sure we get the word out. I appreciate it. And thank you for stepping up.
Yep, you bet.
Orange County Sanitation District.
Okay. My professional background is water and wastewater, so I'm very much enjoying being on the sanitation district. This is an area where I feel I can make a significant difference, and very much enjoying this assignment. On March 27th, I represented the city at the Sanitation District Board Steering Committee and the board meetings, both in Fountain Valley. And key issues that were discussed at those meetings included updates on our labor negotiations. We approved contracts for rehabilitation of our ocean outfall, and we approved a study to locate active seismic faults, and approved a budget increase in the Headworks rehabilitation project. In addition, the board approved a joint agreement with the Orange County Water District for final expansion of the groundwater recycling system. This system is receiving worldwide recognition. We basically recycle, and when this next expansion is completed, we'll basically be recycling virtually all of the wastewater received at the sanitation districts. That's on a daily basis about 185 million gallons per day. That's a lot of water. And what we do is the treated water ultimately goes, the final treatment is reverse osmosis. So we do have a small, about a 10 to 15% discharge to the ocean of reject, which is basically the brines. And then the rest of the water, which is very, very pure, is used for groundwater recharge. So it improves the reliability of our water supply here in Orange County. The water is, part of the water is used for maintenance of the seawater intrusion barrier down along the coast, but much of the water goes up to the Miller spreading basin up in Anaheim to recharge the groundwater basin, which makes water more available for Serrano Water District, which provides for us. On March 29th, the Assistant General Manager of the district provided me with a tour of the district's new sludge centrifuge facility. This state-of-the-art facility uses large, high-speed centrifuges to dewater sludge solids before loading the solids into trucks for use in composting operations and for soil conditioning and agricultural operations in Arizona. And these centrifuges promise greater reliability and efficiency in dewatering the sludge. This reduces the volume and the weight of the sludge, reducing traffic and air quality impacts of the off-site disposal. For those of us that marvel at locomotives and large power plants, this tour of the new sludge dewatering the facility was a real treat. And then finally, on April 3rd, I chaired the meeting of the Operations Committee, and key items discussed include an authorization to begin negotiations for overhaul of 2 of the 9 central generation engines. These engines are enormous marine diesel engines, engines that they typically use to power ocean-going vessels, and that use methane generated by the digestion of waste solids separated from municipal wastewater. So we reuse the water. We recycle the solids for crop production, and we also reuse the methane that's produced in the treatment process to generate electricity. So in addition to producing 2/3 of the electricity needed to operate the very large wastewater treatment works, waste heat and steam produced are also used for cooling of the administration building at the district and also to promote the solids digestion process. So, busy month.
Sounds like it. Thank you. Next, we have Orange County Fire Authority. I'm going to make this brief. Tough act to follow there. Correct me if I'm wrong, Chief. We're going to be welcoming Garden Grove, the city of Garden Grove, to the Orange County Fire Authority in the very near future. And we are bringing Irvine back into the fold. The Orange County Fire Authority and the city of Irvine have reached an agreement that addresses their concerns, at the same time makes, how should I say this delicately, gives them enough of what they want, but at the same time protects the fire authority's best interests and its member entities. We're very, very fortunate that we could work together on this, and that we have Irvine back within the fire authority. They're an incredibly important part of both our funding, but also from a geographic location. They're literally in the center of Orange County. And the city of Garden Grove, at the same time, is going to be a welcome addition in that they kind of complete a chain of cities and again provide greater service to some cities that are nearby, and they will be partnering with the city of Westminster on at least one fire station. And as Chief Blon mentioned, we are going to be welcoming Division Chief, I believe it's Phil Johnson, in the upcoming months or perhaps next month. And we're very blessed to have him. Look forward to working with him. And I will address the concerns that I sent to Chief Anderson today at next meeting and share the email that I sent. And if anybody has any feedback about fire safety concerns or public safety matters or emergency preparedness, I welcome those. Please send an email or contact Steve. I don't pretend to have all the answers, but I am trying to represent the city as best as possible in it, and I would appreciate any comments you have on as it pertains to that. And that's all I have for the Fire Authority. Next is Orange County Library Advisory Board.
The Orange County Library Advisory Board last met in January before I was appointed, so I haven't gotten to go to one of those yet, but they have one coming up, so soon.
Thank you. City Schools Advisory.
No meeting.
Okay. Community Development.
The Community Development Committee met on April 1st, and the key thing that we discussed was the ordinance that is on for approval later in our agenda.
Thank you. Friends of the Villa Park Library.
So the Friends of the Villa Park Library met on April 4th. I was unable to attend, but I got good notes from Shauna Bird and Bill Baker about the activities. I want to highlight, as Shauna mentioned about the summer reading program, that's for everyone. So not just kids, but everybody who likes to read. I know I love to read, so I'm looking forward to it, so we can get our community involved and go read.
I want to just promote that program personally. My kids participated in that last year, and it's a great program. And I'm going to admit a shortcoming of my own. I was not the best reader growing up. I may have an advanced degree, and I did attend a significant university, but I was not the best reader. And one of the greatest joys as a parent is seeing that spark of interest in both of my kids. And I think the summer reading program has kept them interested in reading, and I really encourage every resident, whether you have children or whether you're a retiree, whatever the case may be, I think it's a great program, and please visit our library. Well done. Next, we have infrastructure management.
Okay. Oh gosh, I forgot the date that we met, but key items discussed included an update on the street rehabilitation project and the proposed 2019-2010 pavement management plan.
Speak louder, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. The key items, is my mic on?
We can hardly hear you.
I'm sorry. this affect it?
Should work.
Does this make it work?
Why don't we take a 5-minute recess and see if we can get the audio issues squared away?
Does this help? You don't hear me over the thing. So, okay.
Thank you for pointing that out. We appreciate it.
Means the people watching on TV can't hear either, so appreciate it.
Thank you, gentlemen. Have a good evening.
You're getting it on the video read, it's not apparently it's loud enough in here, so we're gonna turn it well in here.
Okay.
But you are getting it on the audio feed that's going out.
Okay.
Thank you.
So they missed my presentation on the sanitation district.
I love how excited you are about that.
Honestly, yes. I've never seen.
On the TV.
It's on TV.
Otherwise known as the turd.
All right. Okay. Is everybody ready? We'll start again. All right.
Okay.
Back in session.
Okay, Infrastructure Management Advisory Committee. The key items discussed included an update on the street rehabilitation project and the proposed 2019-2010 pavement management plan. In this discussion, staff distributed a map of the city identifying those streets that have received maintenance since 2011, including those proposed for maintenance in 2019-2020. And this is the map. It's a map of our city streets, and in color are the streets that have received some maintenance. And I'd like to ask that this be posted on our city website so that the residents can see where we are. But based on just my own visual estimate, it appears that roughly 10% of our streets have received maintenance over this 9-year period. So I requested staff to provide a more specific estimate, and Akram, have you had an opportunity to prepare that estimate? Okay. However, if correct that it's roughly 10% of our streets have been received maintenance in the past 9 years, at our current rate, the city will take roughly 100 years to maintain all of our streets. This is not a criticism of staff. Staff only has the resources that we can provide them from our budget, but it shows that we've got a challenge. Just to provide a contrast, in contrast, the city of Los Alamitos reports that they maintain their streets on an 8-year schedule, so approximately 10 times more frequent than we maintain our streets in Villa Park. During the discussion, it was noted that SB 1, which resulted in an increase in our gas tax for street maintenance, has also resulted in a doubling of our paving costs due to the number of paving projects under contract. In other words, there's a lot of competition for pavement projects, so the cost for to get those projects done is doubled. So we've got a challenge, and the challenge continues to becomes more challenging. So that's all I have to report.
Thank you. Could you share this with Councilmember Zimmerman, please?
Oh, yes.
Next is Investment Advisory.
So in January, they had a meeting, but I don't think we had assigned the committees or confirmed the committees yet. So we had our first meeting this month, and the meeting was more of an introductory for me and catching up, meeting everyone. Some of the things that they did go over, they're looking to update the investment policy statement and discussions about consolidating some CDs that are going to be maturing this year, and maybe perhaps consolidating them into investing into one. And then also, kind of as a homework assignment, if you will, having the committee do kind of some research on what other small Orange County cities do to for like best practice when it comes to investments, and survey their approaches and their investment ideas. So we meet quarterly, so the next one isn't until June or July.
Thank you. Next, we have Law Enforcement Advisory. That meeting was scheduled for earlier this month, but it was postponed, and we will be meeting on April 29th. Correct me if I'm wrong. So next week, look forward to everybody attending.
So nothing to report as of now. Villa Park Community Services Foundation, I believe.
I could not make the meeting, but
So I went.
thank you so much for doing that. I appreciate it.
Nope, no problem. So that was a great meeting. The new governance chair kind of got her feet fully wet and went over some stuff. So, and then since we had just passed or adopted, appointed Mr. and Mrs. Kreitzinger, they were there as well, and discussed the dog adoption that is going to be on June 29th, and then a big concert in the park, which is ABBA, which is supposedly supposed to be one of the best ABBA impersonations bands ever. That's going to be Friday, August 2nd. And then there was just some ideas thrown around. I had mentioned, as you know, at the past city council about a state of the city, and the foundation really liked that idea and wanted to see how they could interact with us on that. That was it.
Thank you. Next, we have public comments. At this time, members of the public may address the council on any off-agenda items within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council, provided that no action may be taken on off-agenda items unless authorized by law. Opportunities will also be provided for public comment on each agenda item. Comments are limited to 5 minutes per person and 30 minutes for all comments. Just a reminder to my fellow council members, I reviewed some Brown Act training here, so this is not specifically geared towards anybody, but this is just a general reminder that my fellow council members, that pursuant to the Brown Act, we should not communicate by electronic device about any agendized items during the meeting. I'm confident that we haven't done that in the past. We won't in the future, but if I didn't do that, I might get a stinky look from our city attorney, and want to make sure that we're in compliance. We're in compliance with the Brown Act. We're in compliance with the Brown Act. So, okay. I know that other cities do that, and they announce that, and I just want to make sure that we are operating under best practice. Obviously, if we have an emergency phone call from home from a family member, that's not what I'm talking about. So, thank you so much for indulging me on that. The first item is public hearing. Our first hearing is the.
We didn't receive any blue cards for public hearings.
Thank you,
But
for the
public
record.
comments, but I didn't know if anyone in the audience wanted to come up and didn't fill out a card. Now would be your chance to.
Now's your chance, sir. Come on up, give us your name and your address. Welcome. Ladies first.
Carol Gilbert,
Hi, Carol.
9221 Longwood Street.
Hi.
And I wanted to inquire about the 9-car garage that was going to be built across the street from me. And tonight, what I thought, this is what we were going to hear about it, and I don't see anybody here at all.
That's an item that is agendized, but is going to be continued till next month.
Oh, crap.
So,
Sorry.
Okay.
yes. So, sorry you came down, but
Well,
we did.
my husband's sick, he's home, and so here I am, and then I'm waiting, and I can't hear you. You're so quiet, you cannot hear back there. You need to up your sound system.
Well, we apologize
And my
for that.
hearing is good, because, so, anyway, that's my complaint.
Thank
Hopefully
you.
our technician in the
Thank you.
back room has heard what you just said, and will help correct that.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm leaving.
Thank you. Have a good
Have a
evening.
good night.
And get your husband better so he can
Yes.
come next month.
Well, pardon me?
What day next month?
It will be, give me the correct,
May
fourth
28th.
Tuesday? Yeah.
The applicant has asked it to be continued until May 28th.
Okay, because
So
I
at
didn't see
6:30.
anybody here from,
Yes.
Right. Yeah, it was agendized that it was going to be continued, so
but we didn't.
Yeah. sorry about that.
Okay.
Okay, we'll see you next month.
Good night.
Hope your husband feels better. Sir, you're next. Please give us your name and your address. Please.
Jacob Baker, address 1042 North Wanda Road. I really hope that falls into Villa Park and not Orange. It's very fickle city lines. This is the community segment, am I correct?
Yes.
Public comments.
Public comments. Okay,
Yes, on
wonderful. Sorry.
any non-agendized item.
Thank you. First time to a town meeting, may I say. Doing a report for sociology up at Santiago, and I just wanted to come up and say thank you to all the board members for this very informational meeting. It was extremely informative. I really enjoyed it. Nice to be part of this community for so many years, and now to be fully informed on what's going on. that's all I want to say. Otherwise, you're doing a grand job, truly.
Thank you, and thank you for your
Thank you.
involvement. We appreciate it. And thank you for causing me to pause for a minute.
You cleared the room.
Indeed.
Sorry about that.
All two people. Our first hearing is the review to waive reading in full of all ordinances and resolutions on the agenda. I will now formally open the meeting. Correct me if I'm wrong, there's no staff report, but by all means.
That's a routine item that we approve every agenda to expedite the movement of the meeting.
Okay.
We recommend approval.
So moved.
Second?
Okay. I don't believe there's any public comment about this matter, so please go ahead and vote.
That passes by a 5-0 vote.
Okay. Next hearing is the conditional use permit 2019-01, correct me if I'm wrong, at 9222 Loma Street. This item was continued from the March 28th, 2019 City Council meeting, and no action will be taken at this time, and it will be continued to May 28th, to the May 28th, 2019 City Council meeting.
So the public hearing will be continued at the request of the applicant.
Okay, thank you very much. Next. Next public hearing is the first reading to code amendments to section 23-6-7, property development standards, residential zones, and section 23-6-8, performance standards, residential zones of the Villa Park Municipal Code to amend the requirement for a conditional use permit for garage doors that are 8 feet in height or more and add minimum design guidelines for garage doors in the residential zones within the city. I will now open the hearing. Steve, would you please give the staff report, or Akram?
This is an item that was requested by then Mayor Collicott and now Councilman Collicott. It has been processed through CDC. I'll let Ray Pasquar, City Planning Manager, give you a little
And forgive me,
summary
Ray.
of it.
Forgive me, I said Akram, I meant Ray. I apologize.
And I'll be brief. At the present time, the zoning code requires city council approval of a CUP to allow for any garage doors that are 8 feet tall or higher. Over the past couple of years or so, city staff has reviewed numerous plans for new residents and residential remodels. And more often than not, the plans include a garage door that is 8 feet or more. So this is basically the standard now, where it used to be 7 and some change. Now it's 8. And it's more common, as I mentioned, to see the garage doors this tall because of the popularity of vehicles that have the higher or taller profiles, such as the SUVs, trucks, vans, and so forth. A draft of this code amendment was presented to the CDC on April 1st, attended by Councilman Collicott, Councilwoman Miles, and Chair of the committee, Steve and myself. There were no members of the public in attendance that evening to speak for or against this item. Following a brief discussion with the CDC members and staff, there were a couple of edits to what city staff had drafted for this code amendment. City staff or the CDC voted to move this item forward before full city council for consideration. So what you have before you is a draft ordinance that was amended to allow for garage doors 8 feet and some change, if you will, in height. So anything taller than that would require a CUP. City staff also drafted some minimum design guidelines to provide some assurance that the design of the garage door would match or be compatible with the style of the residence. As required by code, we posted and sent out public notices for this item, and to date, staff has not received any comments for or against this code amendment. I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Correct me if
I would add that this is a first reading. The second reading would be in the May meeting, but by we go through a process here basically where there are 2 bites at the apple, if you will. So this is first reading, and we would recommend approval.
Okay. Correct me if I'm wrong, this will be the 3rd time that we've had the opportunity for the public to comment on this, because this was agendized at a community development meeting that I attended, and then that you were unable to attend, and then you both had the meeting on the 1st, and now we have this. So there's been ample opportunity for the public to have a say-so on this. So thank you for that. And I noticed that the sectional garage door component was part of that as a highly encouraged. And I don't know if people make solid doors anymore, but I think that's nice to provide a little specificity in it. So thank you. Did you have some comments?
Yes, I've been on the Community Development Committee since initially elected in 2014, and requests for conditional use permits to exceed the height limit have been routine. We've had many of these, and 90% of them, correct me if I'm wrong, are just wanting to increase their garage door height to about 8 feet. So this would get 90% of those, and this is significant for people that want to remodel their homes and so forth, because although we routinely approve these requests, it still costs the project applicant time, and also costs them money. It costs them $1,900 to get a conditional use permit. So since we're already issuing them routinely, that's a good indicator that, okay, maybe we need to change our standard, and this is an effort to make that 8 feet plus and change a standard so that people can more expeditiously get on with their redevelopment projects or rehab projects. So thank you.
So I just I read this and then I needed to reread it again and make sure but that before we required a CUP if they asked for a garage that was 8 feet or taller.
That's correct.
And now we're saying if it's 8'1" or taller.
That's
Yes.
right.
Yes.
So this really is just about said the line is just 1 inch off. So
Yes.
I mean, it's not going to drastically change Villa Park. We're not
Not-
like
not
doing
at
any
all.
damage.
Yeah.
Not
This
at
is
all.
just to make things easier.
Yes.
Correct.
And that's all. Okay.
Correct.
I want to make sure because it seemed like the way you were talking about it, oh, this is going to be huge. It's 90% of these. And I was like, but it's really just an inch, right? Okay, we're good.
Yeah, we're
But I
big
think it's
into-
common because what I think that Ray is saying and the councilmen are saying is that the profile of cars nowadays and the types of cars that are coming out are higher profile. So the number of requests that are above 7 feet and change is now is higher.
Right.
So that those would not have to. So
But they
it's
could
kind
have
of
done,
keeping
like-
with the practice of what the cars are coming out
They
with.
could have done a 7'11.5" one before, or something like. It would have been fine. But this just kind of says, no, let's make it 8. Okay. All right. Got it.
And as part of my analysis, I also called a couple of local garage door companies, and I asked, what is the standard garage doors these days that property owners are looking to buy? And a gentleman who was at one of the companies said, yeah, most of them are 8 or taller, where it used to be 7, 7.5, but now it's 8.
Thank you.
Ladies first.
No, I share the sentiment with Councilman Colacott, especially since the frequency of those CUPs coming in asking for 8, that then it reduces staff time and saves the resident money, and it's a positive win-win for everyone. And then anything above 8.1, then they do have to come. But if they're going above 8.1, they're usually asking for 14. So that still helps us to control and regulate and know what's going on.
The only question or concern I had was it says 8 feet in height or more. It doesn't define here in the language.
It's 8.1.
The
It's
actual
8.1.
ordinance itself
It's
says
8.1.
8'1"
Yeah.
in the garage doors. The second paragraph under section 3
Okay.
says garage doors are 8'1" or 8 feet 1 inch in height or more are subject to a
Says more.
CUP.
But it's,
More.
yeah,
8
8 feet
foot one
1
or
or
more.
more,
Require
not
the
8
Oh,
feet
are
or
required.
more.
8'1"
Yes.
are required
Yes.
CUPs.
Just making sure,
Yeah.
because,
Yes.
I'm okay with the 8 feet, but you start getting 10, 12, 14 feet,
No, yeah,
that's CUP.
No,
time.
8'1"
yeah.
is
Yeah, absolutely.
the
Exactly.
line.
absolutely.
That's fine.
We're on the same page.
Is there anyone here to speak about this? Any questions from the public? Okay. Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing on this matter. Do I have a motion on this?
All motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please vote.
That passes by a 5-0 vote.
Thank you. Next public hearing, our last hearing is the consideration of ordinance 2019-613, adopting revised Orange County Taxi Administration Program regulations. This is the second and final reading of ordinance number 2019-613. I will now open the hearing. Steve?
You'll recall that on March 28th, you adopted the first reading of that. This was the Orange County Taxi Administration Program, which is a voluntary association of Orange County agencies that basically contract with OCTA changed the regulations and indicated they were going to change the structure. We've been involved since 1997. So in doing so, they changed it, and by ordinance, all participating cities need to make their guidelines, administrative procedures consistent. So this is an action to allow us to continue membership. You recall last fall that we voted to stay within OCTAP and continue having OCTA administer it for us, which saves the city significant effort having to do administrative work to register taxi entities in the cities. So it's all done in a regulated, consistent manner throughout the county. So with that, this is the second and final reading, and the ordinance would go into effect 30 days after approval tonight, should the council approve it.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Any members of the public that want to comment on this? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Please vote.
That passes by a 5-0 vote.
Okay, thank you. Now we will consider our consent calendar. All items on the consent calendar are considered routine and are usually enacted by one motion approving the recommended action listed on the agenda. Any member of the city council, staff, or the public may request an item be removed from the consent calendar for discussion or separate action. Council members, are there any items you would like to remove from the consent calendar? Only one I have is Senator Morlock's item. We could just have a brief discussion about that and go over that real quickly.
So do you want to approve the balance, or are you gonna?
Yes, let's go ahead and approve the balance and then
Okay,
bring that.
I'll make that motion to approve the balance, the consent calendar.
And I'll second that. So let's go ahead and vote on the balance.
Okay, this passes by a 5-0 vote, all items. Number 8 is the support of SB 447 authored by Senator John Morlock, who represents, I'm not gonna know which district off the top of my head, but he's in the state senate.
A large area.
A large area, which includes Villa Park.
Indeed.
And Orange. And in so, you'll know that 2 parks that are in the city of Orange, although not part of Villa Park, they're Hart Park and Handy Park, are parcels owned by the California Department of Transportation, Caltrans. Caltrans is looking to, I want to say this, to offload those properties. The city of Orange is interested in taking ownership of those to ensure they would be continued use for recreational purposes. Senator Morlock's bill would transfer those properties to Orange and continue those for indefinite period, in perpetuity, basically, for recreational purposes. While they're not contiguous or even specifically adjacent to Villa Park, they are open areas near Villa Park that residents, and they're nice accommodations of parks. So we certainly concur, as opposed to those properties being sold off and potentially being developed for whatever the purpose may be, housing, residential, commercial, whatever. So this would ensure that those parks remain in perpetuity. The city of Orange is very much in support of this, and they actually are very thankful that we may be interested in supporting the bill. We were contacted by Senator Morlock's office, given the opportunity to preserve open space in the area pretty near Villa Park, and residents may want to use that. Hart Park in particular is a park that I know they have softball leagues and everything. It's right down. It flows in, and you can actually walk to it, actually, if you wanted to. So we'd like to keep it, and we would recommend approval.
I just wanted to touch on this, and I fully support this measure. This was brought to my attention by email request, and I suggested to Steve that we agendize this, and I'm thankful that we've done this. I think it's important that we support our neighbors in the city of Orange and their residents, and it seems a very logical thing for Caltrans, for the state legislature, and the city of Orange and Villa Park to be involved in, and I thank everybody and would encourage everybody's support on this. Any questions?
I'd like to move approval of the resolution.
Any member from the public? Nope. Okay.
Second.
Do I have a second? Okay. Please vote.
That passes by a 5-0 vote.
Okay.
Mayor.
Yes, sir.
My apologies. I thought that item 9 was also out already. I know we've already approved it by consent. Would you mind if I said 1 or 2 words real quick?
I don't have a problem. Do you have a problem?
It's entirely
Well,
appropriate.
by all means, please.
Okay. So this is our Adopt a Unit program that we talked about for several months, and Villa Park Rotary has been pursuing this and taken up the baton, and we're just highlighting it in this resolution to that is something that the city's going to be helping to coordinate with through Rotary. It's a fantastic program, and it's one of those things that in our community, we help support military organizations through, for example, the Marine program, the Marine Thanksgiving program, which is spectacular. And this is just one other way that our community can be involved and seek to help. So,
Just curious, how did Rotary decide on the 101st Airborne Air Assault as opposed to, say, 82nd Airborne or?
I wasn't involved in that decision, so I don't know.
Okay,
I
not
can
a
share
problem.
that there is an organization that they work through, the American Supporting Americans. It's a nonprofit that they basically coordinate units with entities. So if there's any connection with the city, typically they try and, if there's, it's not alumni, but veterans that might have served in those units or whatever, they express that interest. So this unit worked directly with the Rotary, and I don't know if there's an affiliation with some of the veterans. There may or may not be, but there was a connection made, and they felt that would be an appropriate work. So the Rotary has a number of members that are very enthusiastic, excited about stepping forward. So they're very enthusiastic and waiting for the city to take action.
There's quite a few members of the Rotary group here that are veterans.
I'm reading a book about a Villa Park resident who served during the Battle of the Bulge, and I was just wondering, he was in the Army. I was just wondering, does this rotate?
No, it's typically, they like to have a long-term relationship.
Okay.
Because as these people get deployed and come back, then there's a long-term connection with them, and there's family connections as well. It's also to support the families here while the service individual in the service is overseas. So there's a lot of connections, and they try and keep those long-term so that they establish relationships as families get older. They feel the support and the connection, and when the families return, the servicemen typically will show up at times and come to meet, and so it's kind of a long-term relationship as long as the Rotary is interested in maintaining it.
That's
They
great.
like to keep that connection with that unit.
I'm thankful that the Rotary has stepped up and selected them, and I certainly support it. So we've already voted on it.
Right.
Yeah.
No action required, but
Yeah.
thanks for letting me talk.
No problem. Okay, old business. Our first item of old business is regarding the conditional use permit number 2019-02. This item was continued for follow-up action from the March 28th, 2019 City Council meeting. Steve, staff report, please.
Yes, this is you'll recall that this is the property related on Meats Avenue where the council took action to deny a CUP last meeting in March. So what's happened is to formally take action, we have to, according to our city attorney, adopt a resolution, which at the time, we didn't have a resolution denying it because the council hadn't taken action at the last meeting. So this is to formalize the actions taken by the council last meeting, and that was done in a public hearing on March. So this is adoption of a resolution. And people have asked, because we've got several inquiries, what will happen next? Once the council takes action on this tonight, should they approve it, the resolution, we have a letter ready to go to the resident indicating they would have 30 days to take action to clean property and restore, and take those activities off the property, restore it to its previous situation, if you will. So that will be the next action. We're ready to move forward should the council decide to approve this tonight.
Thank you. Council members, do you have any questions?
So approving means that we are denying the conditional use.
This is approval of a resolution that denies the
Denies it.
CUP.
Okay. Thanks.
So it's a positive, negative.
Yeah,
Was wondering how
Positive
you-
affirmation of a negative vote.
Yes.
okay, thank you.
Any member of the public on this? No. Okay. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Sounds like a,
Second.
yeah. All right, we have a motion and a second. Please vote.
This passes by a 5-0 vote.
Our first item of new business is the approval of the 2019-2020 OC Animal Care Notice of Intent. Steve?
You'll recall that in April of 2016, the city adopted basically two agreements, one for the building of, a 10-year agreement for the building of the new animal shelter in Tustin, and secondarily, the agreement to approve continuation of services for 10 years with the city consistent with that agreement, so two parallel agreements. Part of that second agreement that had the provision of services requires the county to give us an estimate of services each year and cost, and with that agreement, they have to give us an estimate, and they ask us to affirm that we want those services because there are some discretionary items in there. We typically get the full menu of services provided. Last year, our costs were in the range of $38,000. Based on, it's a complex formula, having lived it and breathed it for about 10 years, and helping develop it. It is based on utilization and actual costs, a combination of those. And based on our utilization, their estimate is that while the total system costs will go about 3%, our costs will drop pretty close to $20,000 from $35,000 last year to about $12,000, $13,000 this year. Largely because most of our calls for service is wildlife, coyotes, rattlesnakes, those types of things. We have about, very atypical across the country, we have about a 95% dog license compliance rate, which is extremely high. The average in the country is between 50 and 60%.
Wow.
And so we're us to be 90%. What that means is when dogs are lost, they're picked up and returned very quickly and minimal cost. Many times they're picked up and returned before they're taken to the animal shelter because they're licensed and they're tagged or whatever. So the advantage, the county has a program where if the dogs never run away and they pick it up, there's no charge if they just find it the first time and return it to your thing. If you let your dog get picked up and taken to the shelter, I'm going to tell you you're going to spend between $150 and $200 to redeem it. So there's an advantage to having your dog licensed, and there's an advantage to having your dog, restrained behind the fences and whatnot, and not run away. Anyway, long story short, we have such good compliance, we have such good residents relative to our responsible residents that our service level is de minimis and decreasing relative to the total system. So we're going to have a huge reduction in about $20,000 next year, or about 70% budget reduction for next year. So this is an affirmation that we would send a notice of intent saying that we want to stick with animal care. And by all means, I'd recommend we approval.
Council members, any questions? Members of the public? Do I have a motion on this matter?
So moved.
Second? We have a motion and a second. Please vote.
That passes by a 5-0 vote.
Our next item of new business is the analysis of contract law enforcement services costs and methodology. Steve?
Yes, you'll recall that in August of 2017, the contract cities, the 12 other contract cities and us joined into an agreement to basically study the service provision methodology for billing, et cetera, with the sheriff because our costs were rising at such a large rate. We hired an outside firm. They've spent a significant amount of time. I've met with city managers almost quarterly on the basis since 2017. The report has come back at this point. There's two basic main conclusions. The first is the allocation methodology is pretty accurate and reliable so that we're not getting disproportionate shares of costs shared with us. Secondly, which is probably something very, very important for the residents to know, is that the use of contracted law enforcement is extremely cost effective for the city of Villa Park. We spend on an average of $215 per capita. While that may seem high, the cost of those who have their own police departments spend between $395 to $400 per capita for law enforcement. It's much more expensive because the sheriff is a great deal. And as you've seen, we've got a very low crime rate. They do a really good job here. The city of Villa Park, we're at 273, I'm sorry, for the last, in this study. So we're doing very, very well. We have a very low crime rate, and they're doing a very good job. There are two recommendations that come forward in the report, and the report should consider the way they charge costs, and they charge them based on a step rate. So in other words, most employees, when they're hired in the county, are at a certain hired at an entry-level step of 1 maybe. Then they go up to step 14 is the highest step if you're a long-term employee. And I know Councilman Colacott probably remembers this. There's a tiered step, and every year you can move up a couple steps, and that's sort of a progressive incentive to stay with them long-term. What they were doing was using the highest step in billing every city. So what they're doing is, that's how, one of the things that they uncovered is they're calling. Now, what's interesting is, in the past, that methodology, when it was developed, made a lot more sense because, if you recall, most deputies, before they got out in the field, had spent 5 to 10 years in the jails, so they were working their way up and probably were close to step 14, all right? So the methodology, when it was applied originally and developed, made a lot of sense. Now what the cities have said is, let's go back and look at actuals and see, because sometimes, like for instance in Villa Park, we have some deputies that aren't at that step, that highest step. So candidly, that's going to be a step, and we'll change, the sheriff is going to go back and look at that methodology. Secondly, and this is going to be less so for us, but some of the cities have a lot of vehicles assigned. As you can imagine, Mission Viejo, some of the South County cities have a lot of land to cover. So they have motor vehicles, and they have motorcycles, et cetera. The cost of maintaining those vehicles up to sheriff standards is pretty expensive. The reason is, it's not the sheriff that maintains them, it's the county's public works department. So the county's public works department, which provides those services, is expensive. The Sheriff Barnes, has said all along, I'd like to explore the possibility of contracting out that maintenance. Now, the interesting thing is, certain things can't be contracted out, because if you'll notice, you wonder why our vehicles in the back are never shut down. It's because they don't shut down. There's so much computer equipment in there, they have to reboot everything and all that. So there's a lot of equipment, IT equipment, that they will not let contracted services provide because of the confidentiality and accessing the system. But there's a lot of maintenance, oil changes, tire changes, those kinds of things, that just, changing spark plugs, blah, blah, blah. Those can be changed. Some of the cities are even interested in potentially buying those vehicles on behalf of the sheriff and maintaining them under a JPA, so that they would be maintained under standard and not be maintained by the county. The sheriff has indicated, I'm willing to look at both the actual hourly rates and the transportation, and he said, I would like to form a technical advisory committee of a number of cities. Mark Pallone, the city manager of Yorba Linda, was sort of chosen as the chair of that, which is a very good thing for us, because he's a North County guy and he understands what's going on with Villa Park, and a lot of deputies go back and forth. So we're going to get a very good sense of what works here and what not. So, and Mark's a very thorough, very good guy, and he's assigning his, as all good city managers do, he's assigning his staff to do it, and the guy he's assigning his financial guy is really sharp. So in essence, this report is being provided to let you know where they stand, because we did pay some money, we paid, I want to say 4,000 is what we committed, but we're only going to spend about 2,000 toward it. So we're getting a rebate because we didn't have to spend that much in the study. And anyway, long story short, there are some findings. There are to our benefit to continue to contract with the sheriff. And this is just basically providing a copy of the final report, a letter from Sheriff Barnes indicating he supported the technical advisory committee, and then basically just a spread of the cost allocation showing us that we underspent our contract as a whole. So this is a for informational item. There's no action required to receive and file, but I'm certainly willing to answer any questions and move forward if you have any.
Do you have any questions?
I do, but I don't know if this is the appropriate time to ask. Just, if it's not, then just tell me. But just, do you have any suggestions why I'm noticing between the fiscal year 18-17, we had a 14% increase
In
costs?
cost. Yes, I do, because this has been negotiated with the sheriff. We had, if you look the year before, we had less than a 2% increase. So, and if you look by comparison, one of the things they hadn't done is hadn't applied overhead to our rates in the year before. So we're playing catch up. And as you recall, it predates you, but the prior council knows that they caught up and told us, well, I said, you're not going to catch up real fast on 1 year. So they agreed to a 3-year catch up rate.
Okay.
So that was the first year of the catch up. And I said, well, hit us the most. And this year we're looking at about a 5% increase as compared to the 14. But it was the application of overhead. And candidly, overhead for the sheriff's department, it's scary when you see it. But what overhead does is provides us service like our SWAT team, some of the services that we could certainly never pay for on our own. So it provides us, so when they have burglaries, we get extra deputies assigned to us, the detectives and things. So that's a pool that they sort of a cost apply out. So,
Airship too, which is.
I'm sorry, what?
Duke 1 and Duke 2.
Yes, the
Helicopter,
helicopters,
airship's
the
very
crime
expensive,
lab,
but very useful.
all those types of things we get access to. So they do an extremely good job. The bomb squad.
Yeah.
I mean, things that we don't even think about, but they will do for us at no cost or at minimal cost and charge us out. But that's the overhead that is sort of what carried over. The other thing too is, and they started billing us for, when they come out to the boat parade, when they come out to the Halloween Fest, as you recall, they're starting to charge us more. For the 4th of July, they started, we assigned us extra deputies. No longer are they doing that because they're getting pressure in the county to, keep their budget under control. So they're starting to charge us for those services as they come out. So that is just, so the organizations that use those extra deputies, use those extra services, that does come to a cost for the city. So that's sort of, the day of reckoning, if you will, has sort of hit, but I was able to tell them, let's do it over 3 years. And that's kind of where we landed.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Just a comment. That was a great staff presentation. I think that illustrates what a smart, sophisticated, knowledgeable city manager we've got, and we're very fortunate to have somebody of that caliber. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve.
Agreed.
Any
Mayor,
members of the
Just
public?
very briefly.
Yes, by all means.
Just one thing, just so people know, so state law requires that the county, if they provide police services, can only charge their cost. So, I mean, whenever we negotiate with the county, we're not really negotiating. We can negotiate service levels, i.e. how many cops we want and stuff, but we don't negotiate cost. So hence the audit to correlate with state law to make sure we're just getting charged what that actual cost is. Just a lot of people don't understand that.
And one of the questions was, am I paying for a South County substation, for instance,
Right.
a proportionate share? We're not. And those kinds of things, this verified those types of things. So we don't feel that. But that was sort of an affirmation that we needed, that we are appropriately being charged and getting those things. So remember, we sort of agreed that we wanted it long ago. We asked to be part of the study because we want to be at the table instead of part of the meal, instead of if they're going to change formulas. And we're at the table, and we actually had some very solid input, and I really appreciate the sheriff's willingness to work with us and talk to us through all this stuff. And there's a lot of explaining to do. It's a very complicated process and very active. The deployment of sheriff deputies is pretty sophisticated process because one deputy may work here today, tomorrow he may work in North Patrol in the unincorporated area, how their time is charged and all those kinds of things. It's a lot of effort to trail that stuff, so.
Indeed. Thank you, and thank you both for your explanation. Since there's no motion and nothing to vote on, we'll just receive and file that.
Yes.
New business. Our last item of new business is the adoption of the year 2019-2020 street project list for SB1 road maintenance and a rehabilitation account. Steve?
SB1 is the Road Repair and Accountability Act of 2017 requires us to basically submit a list each year of proposed projects for us that we will be working on for the next
funding cycle for SB1. In there, what we have done is provided a list of proposed projects for 2019-20, primarily related to the PCI index and secondarily to adjacencies, because sometimes projects move on that process. If they're right adjacent, we know they can mobilize and do 2 or 3 streets in that area. It might make more sense. So we have listed those. You'll see the resolution attached to it is a list of the projects. You'll recall we adopted for the last project. These come in about a 2-year cycle that we finish these projects. You'll see those are listed here. These projects can be changed. It's subject to approval by the city council. But these are based on PCI and adjacencies, and we're prepared to answer any questions.
Thank you. Council members?
So can you talk briefly about the amount of money that we're getting here as compared to what it was before SB1?
Akram, you want to, or Frank, Akram? Oh.
So I remember looking at the numbers
Frank,
and they were
do you wanna-
pretty dramatic.
I apologize.
Why don't you step
The
up?
SB1, I think we will be receiving around close to 200,000.
I believe in this coming year it'll be closer to that. Yes, SB1 started kind of mid-fiscal year last year, so it was roughly 98,000, but it should go up, obviously, with the continuation of the gas tax and at least.
As compared to our previous budget for this, when I looked at this before, it looked like this was it was maybe more than that projected into the future, but.
Normally, we have about $350,000 that comes from the gas tax and Measure M altogether, plus this one, plus the 200. So approximately, we'll have close to $500,000 to $600,000.
And in a year where it's the full year, is it about double of our normal budget?
No, I mean
Close to that. If they get 250,000, we had a 300, yes.
Got it. Okay.
Not
I just
exactly,
wanted to.
but order of magnitude.
Yep. It's pretty good.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, we discussed it at the Infrastructure Management Advisory Committee that paving costs are also doubling because everybody's competing for the materials and for the labor and the equipment to do the paving now that everybody's got all the money. So
Interesting.
You can't win for losing. The proposed project list was presented at the Infrastructure Management Advisory Committee, and with the exception of the Meat Street project, all the proposed projects are on residential streets in Villa Park that are in significant need of repair, and I support including them on the list, with the exception of Meats. With virtually every residential street in Villa Park lined with $1 million plus homes, we should not allow any street in our city to deteriorate below good condition. And in fact, I believe that all of us here on the council support maintaining good streets in Villa Park. The Meats project, the reason I don't support the Meats project is the Meats project is a 4-lane road about a quarter of a mile long that's located east of Santiago Boulevard to the top of Feather Hill Drive. Now, Meats was constructed in the 1980s to allow for construction of developments up the hill in Orange. So if you go up from Santiago Boulevard on Meats, the only residential or the only areas you'll encounter are areas of the city of Orange. No residential, no residences, businesses, or streets in Villa Park exit out onto Meats. So by every operational definition, Meats is wholly a street, a City of Orange street, although that particular segment is in Villa Park. Although this is a very heavily trafficked street, in fact, I walked it this morning, it's just about a freeway going through there. Very little, if any, of that traffic is from Villa Park. In fact, many of the residents that I've spoken to about Meats are surprised to find that this stretch of Meats is even located in Villa Park. It's just kind of in that north corner there, and people forget about it. On finding that the portion of Meats in Villa Park was on the list for rehabilitation, I contacted our city manager and found the city of Villa Park neglected to maintain a maintenance agreement from the City of Orange in authorizing construction of meets when they first put meets through Villa Park to connect the Orange portion with the intersection of Santiago at the City of Orange. And this is significant as the proposed project cost for the rehabilitation project for this quarter-mile stretch, as was related by our city engineer, is fully 1/3 of the total budget proposed for street repairs in Villa Park for 2019-2020, correct? Okay.
What's that number? Thank you.
So it's quite a significant portion of our budget, our street maintenance project or budget for a for a street that's really not used by Villa Park. So anyway, I inspected meets from Santiago to Via Scola yesterday by foot and twice on my Harley Davidson. And from my assessment, the pavement in the portion of Villa Park is actually in far better condition than the pavement in the remainder of meets in Orange. In fact, I think that portion of meets in Villa Park is probably in better shape than a lot of pavement on some of our streets, other streets in Villa Park. So it's my recommendation that the meets rehabilitation project be removed from the project list and be replaced by pavement rehabilitation project or projects equivalent cost and primarily serving the city of Villa Park. I also recommend that, and by the way, I did ask our city manager to work with our city engineer to have a Plan B in his back pocket for our meeting tonight. I also would like to recommend that we request our mayor to meet with the mayor of the city of Orange to begin the process of hopefully developing a maintenance agreement so that the city of Orange may include this portion of Meat Street when they implement a maintenance project for the remainder of Meats. So at the appropriate time, I'd like a motion to remove Meats from our list and replace it with a recommendation by staff and also the recommendation to request our mayor to meet with the mayor of the city of Orange.
As a follow-up, the mayor did approach, the councilman approached me. You guys keep changing on me. The councilman approached me and indicated he'd asked me for a Plan B. We looked at, Akram and I looked at that, and we looked at the PCI index, we looked at volume of use, et cetera. One of the things that he's even pointed out, if you go up where Valley and Center connect, that connection where Center turns into Valley, that whole thing, I think you asked the other day if there were potholes that are along there. That would be to fix that section would push about 200,000 or close to, and that's a very heavily used road. It does have residences right along there, and that would be probably one of the main thoroughfares within the city of Villa Park. So that would be our suggestion, that we move into that road would be the one that we would do as one of our next priorities. That obviously that's a very quick look because we looked at this yesterday, but that would be our first reaction to that.
Well, thank you. That's a surprise. I go around that corner frequently on my motorcycle, and there's enough of subsidence there that it just about throws me off the bike if I'm not thinking about it.
Yeah, we've had to repair, as you recall, a couple of potholes that have almost thrown you a couple times. So, and we've had this over the years. So that is a very heavily used. If you're driving up to that part of town, you can't not use that area. You pretty much have to use that. So that would be our recommendation there, and that would probably meet the criteria you were looking for, I think.
Good, thank you.
Please. I actually have two questions and a comment. So the first question, just for my information, so that section of Meats, that is Villa Park.
It is in the boundaries of Villa Park, yes.
We own that section of Meats.
Yes.
That is our responsibility.
Yes.
Okay, second question. Maybe this is more for Todd. If, God forbid, there was an accident on that section of Meats and it was determined that it was due to poor road conditions, are we liable?
Depending upon the facts, yes. I mean, generally the city's responsible for property that it owns or maintains. In order to be held responsible, there's various government code sections, called dangerous condition of public property, and there's a number of factors that go into that, just by way of background. I mean, the answer is yes.
Okay. So here's a suggestion, maybe.
When you're done, I'd like to address that a little bit. I have a little expertise in that.
Comment. Oh, I'm sure you do. So, as a side note, Friday I'm actually getting to meet with. I have to get his. Sean Poole, who's the Senior Intergovernmental Affairs Officer for the Office of the Secretary at the Department of Transportation for Governmental Affairs. I'm going to Washington, D.C. a little early with my 8th grader so that I can have this meeting. And my hope is to acquire information that I can bring back in hopes that we can get some grant money, whether it's for infrastructure or beautification or health and wellness. But he's setting me up with a whole bunch of different individuals that I can go and acquire what I need to be able to hopefully get some funding grants. So that being said, is it possible, meets, I don't think we can just put the stepchild away. I think we need to own the stepchild, but is it possible that perhaps we can kind of delay meets and then let's see what I can bring back, and perhaps meets won't be an issue as far as
We owe a resolution to, there's a deadline with OCTA. So we certainly can submit, my recommendation, if you're going to change it, let's go ahead and put Center Valley on there. And we can come back, and if you get available funding, we don't necessarily even have to go to OCTA, we can just do that project. So that would afford us the opportunity. There's nothing, we just deferred any action on meets at this time, pending potential funding from Orange or potential funding from the Department of Transportation or wherever else that we can find and be willing to give us. So my recommendation is we would make that, if you're interested, make that change tonight on the resolution, submit that to OCTA for the SB1, then we're clear to go on our projects and have no delay, and we can come back and address that at any time next month, whenever you find money for meets if you want to do it. There'll be a discussion. I think you asked the mayor to talk, if Orange is willing to do it, we'd still probably have to grant them an MOU to let us have access, so there would have to be action by the council at some point anyway. On meets. So that would allow us the opportunity to come back and deal with that.
Yes. And, a couple of other items on that. I did go all the way up meets, and if you look at the condition of the Villa Park, that little quarter-mile section of meets versus the Orange section that goes all the way up over the hill, ours is in much better condition than theirs is. What this list is for is rehabilitation projects. We could do maintenance projects, crack filling, pothole fillings to maintain the serviceability of the street. May not be as pretty, but hey, it ain't in Villa Park. And my concern, I think all of our concern is more that, hey, we want to take good care of our residents, make sure that they have good-looking streets in front of their houses, well maintained, to maintain their property values. We have beautiful neighborhoods. We need to do our part as a city.
And just to go off of that, I think that we do have some streets that may have some roadway deficiency issues that need to be dealt with that might pose equally, if not greater, liability to our city, and that's chiefly my concern. And I accept if the council were to so direct me to meet with the mayor, Mayor Mark Murphy, and Rick Otto. Perhaps the four of us could meet and discuss this, Steve, whatever we can work out. Because I do think that there's an issue there. I think that it's important that the city of Orange owns this as much as we do, if not more so, because candidly, it predominantly affects their residents, not ours. And I just think that, yes, we have an obligation to take care of our streets, but we don't have an obligation to resurface that street, just to maintain it and fill any potholes that appear. And I drive that street regularly, and I see the potholes in Orange. I don't see the base failure and the degradation in the Villa Park area. I understand that the PCI is 59, but I'm just wondering whether or not that PCI was accurate and took a look at inadvertently the city of Orange versus the city of Villa Park. And that's, again, not a knock on staff. I think that we just have different priorities, more important priorities within the geographic center of Villa Park and its residents that we should deal with first and foremost. Robbie?
Comments, questions? Question, meats versus Valley and Center. I mean, I've been up on Valley and Center. It's not the best in the world either. What's the PCI of that up there?
That is 65, and the PCI on Center Valley in that section was 65, and the one on Meats was 59. So they're both in need. There's no question they're both in need. But I think the councilman was talking that there is frontage. There is something the residents of Villa Park, a lot more residents use Center and Valley.
There is I realize that too, but there is an awful lot of traffic on Meats. And I'm concerned that if we continue to let that deteriorate even more, it could end up costing us more later on down the road to fix it. Have you had any initial discussions with the City of Orange with regards to joint partnership here of doing something with this street?
At the city level, I have talked to my counterpart in Rick Otto, and candidly, he responded much like I would respond without direction from my council, as to protect our city money and say, we're not inclined, that's above our pay grade. If the mayor wants, and the council wants to direct him to do it, he would certainly take direction from them. But his initial reaction was not going to be recommended at staff level. So I would concur that if you're going to have that discussion, it would have to come at the mayor or elected level, however that would be.
I'm just concerned putting off things. We decided a long time ago to take the worst conditions, the worst streets, and get them fixed so that we could come and climb the ladder. And now we're changing midstream and saying, we're not going to take care of this one right now. So that's my only concern.
Like I say, I don't know that we're, the Councilwoman Miles is saying that we don't take care of it. I think she's saying maybe there's alternate ways to take care of it. So let's look at those alternate ways before we make the final decision. So I don't know that, we certainly are going to look and go back and scour and see what we can do, but I think.
So if those do not come available to us, then what do? We have $200,000 to fix that or more. Where does that money come from?
I think one of the things that Councilman Colacott said, there's opportunities to perform maintenance, which would improve the PCI, just maintenance, not repave at this time. So we could certainly.
There are a few locations where there are potholes, which is our maintenance personnel goes fill them with temporary asphalt. We would have to fill those as part of potholes.
Yeah, Mike and I actually filled one together up there.
Yeah.
One time.
Yeah, so we could, what he's saying, I think what Councilman Colacott and Akram is saying as well, is we fix them, we maintain them, we don't repave them at this time. So we could do that.
I'm just not one myself for putting off the inevitable. And I'm concerned that we'll come up down the road and won't have the funding to be able to do it. I mean, that budget's tight anyway. And I'm just worried that, we'll have issues down the road a piece, that's all.
Zimmerman, and then Councilman Colacott.
So, do we know what Orange keeps their PCI or where their limit is? Because my guess is that Villa Park, our limit for what we repair is going to be, like, we're going to keep our streets a little bit better than they are in general, and they may drop down to the 50s or 40s before they're hitting some of their streets, and that's not. So if we were going to maintain our section of Meats at the same level as their section of Meats, we may have to lower our standards a bit to match theirs. I mean, I don't know what. Maybe that's wrong. Maybe that's backwards. I have no idea. I'm just curious. I think the idea of keeping Meats at the same level along the whole thing, and then as maintaining it if there are potholes to fix or something, seems like a good idea. But we might need to just look at that as a part of a bigger whole instead of just our section and what do we need to do to make it look like the rest of Villa Park. And might be, hey, this one we might not make look like Villa Park. We're going to make it look like it looks in Orange.
I think that's one of the discussion items you would have with the mayor.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with Robbie and with Chad. Yes, we want to maintain our streets in a good condition. We don't want to wait till they totally fall apart. And we've got some streets within Villa Park that we have, that are within Villa Park that we have direct residential access to that are in shabby condition too. So let's take care of our residents first. And if we can just, Band-Aid over the stuff on that little piece of Meats until we can figure things out with the city of Orange. If you look, again, if you look up to the east of the Villa Park portion of Meats, up over the hill, that section, the City of Orange's portion of Meats there, which is their newer section, is in much more dilapidated condition than ours is. It's noticeable. They have lots of potholes, lots of cracks. It's subsidence. You can tell when you're in Villa Park. You can tell when you get into Meats. However, if you go west, up over the freeway, take a look. They're patching their street together. They've used a lot of crack fill, and it's basically paved with tar at this point because they've had to do so much crack fill, and it's still a lot of subsidence and alligatoring, and they're pretty poor condition. So even with just doing simple maintenance on our section of Meats, it's going to be the best looking section of Meats on that whole, the whole road. So
Once again, I'm not concerned about how it looks. I'm concerned about construction itself and it holding
Exactly.
up and it costing us more money down the road. That's
yeah,
That's a good point.
And we do the maintenance to keep it in serviceable condition.
Akram, just to touch on this, correct me if I'm wrong, there could be some measures taken, patches of significant size and depth that assist us in maintaining that street rather than resurfacing the entire street.
Well,
That would
we'll do
potentially
some patching and also if that crack sealing in the next fiscal year, so.
But that won't improve the PCI.
That's at least it won't improve the PCI, it just will protect it from getting worse, and having the water going
Right.
into the subgrade.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
And that's, correct me if I'm wrong, significantly less money than 200,000.
Oh, yes,
Yes, yes.
definitely.
Like 20,000 maybe. Like by
Definitely,
orders of
yes.
magnitude, significantly less.
That is
And
correct.
at the same time, achieving some liability considerations for the long haul. So,
May I ask a question of Akram? Akram, what do you recommend? Do you recommend that we substitute Meats for, or substitute Valley Center for Meats, or leave it as is?
Okay, well, Meats, as it was discussed and so on, it is really a small section, is within our city. And most of the traffic, it is from outside rather than residents. And if we come into Valley and Center, which is from Cerravilla to up to James, that is being utilized more by our residents. There are some work that's need to be done on the pavement, and also some curb and gutter needs to be installed. So that's, probably from a priority-wise, even though it's in a better, from a pavement section, it's in a better condition than Meats from a PCI, but there is a lot of work that needs to be done on Valley and Center. So yes, Valley and Center will be maybe a better, higher priority for those reasons.
Thank you.
any further comments from council? Public? Sir, please step forward.
After hearing you discuss this whole matter, it's rather intriguing. I would only have to say one thing: by those, by their requirements, by those, by their needs, and Meats, well, because I drive around here quite a lot, Meats most certainly for that stretch does not need maintenance as much as some of the more pivotal city roads. Meats, as you said, is of a higher caliber than Orange's version of Meats and can most certainly degrade a bit while our more central roads are taken care of and can most certainly be returned to in a later date.
Thank you for your comment. We appreciate that. Anything else? All right. Do we have a motion then?
If we have the alternate motion, I want to make sure that we would replace the attached proposed list of projects with a revised list of projects that Akram had prepared this afternoon in advance, so that we then, for the record, that new list would be attached to the resolution, and that you'll see that Meats, the first item would be replaced by Valley and Center right there. So that would be replaced, and that would be the attachment to the resolution that would be adopted. So if that would be the motion
special.
of the council, did you need,
I got two. Did you need this other one?
no, I've got one, so
Okay.
we've got lots of copies.
Steve, since this wasn't publicly noticed, do we have to?
No, you have the opportunity to change something that's come forward. The item itself was agendized.
Right.
So as long as the item itself with the resolution of adoption was attached with subject matter, you have
making
the
sure.
right to amend that specific action taken under that agendized item.
Okay.
Is that right, Todd? Yep.
But, so then when because I'll know relatively soon, when I come back, and I can update you and say, hey, I found some avenues, so then by next city council meeting, if
We hopefully will have maybe the conversations with Orange and your input that you receive, so we can certainly return if there's information to report. If not, we can,
Okay.
continue looking. So we have the opportunity, but this would comply with the OCTA requirement to get a SB1 resolution in.
Yes. This list is the streets that will utilize the SB1 funding.
Right.
Okay.
So if we have another other funding for meets and so on, and we're not using SB1, we don't need to modify that this list with the state. But if we're going to utilize whatever funding plus the SB1 funds, then we would come in and modify it with the state. We would have to.
We'd have to
include it
come back
back
and
in.
amend it, should we need to do that. But I'm hearing that the council does not want to amend that at this point. They want to go with this new revised list. And we would, if there's alternate funding, or the city of Orange would be interested in, we could do that without having to submit a list because it doesn't use SB1 funding.
So I don't know if this is the appropriate time or not, but is it, and if it's not, then please tell me, but in preparation for Friday, is it possible to get a list of streets not on the SB1 funding list that would fall under the, whatever our,
Yes, we have the PCI index is what you're looking for,
that
right?
is what
Yes.
we consider unacceptable, and I could take that
Yes.
with me, okay,
And we can give you a map of what's been done, and so we can provide any information you want.
thanks.
All right, so we have a substitute motion. Do we have a second on that?
You made the motion, right?
I guess I did.
Yes.
Yeah, you did, okay.
I'm happy to provide a second on that.
Can we repeat the motion?
So the motion was,
Before we do, sorry, can you review real quick our resident notification? I know we're just approving funding at this point, but how do we tell, I'm just noticing the streets, these are going to be in front of people's homes, right? That
yes.
We're making sure we tell people about.
We
it,
go
like
door
when
to
this,
door, we go
okay.
door to door, we issue this also on our feeder, and we issue a map, put a map on our website as well, and then we'll also put signs, you've seen cones out there when work's being done right now, where work is on your
The
current project.
contractors post as
The
well.
contract post, and we walk door to door residences in advance.
Advance, what's the advance? That's the,
How far in advance typically?
Few weeks. I believe.
okay.
It just, this is mainly just a list. Then
I-
it's still, there's a lot of process which to do the design and then the construction.
But
bid
assuming we're
documentation.
moving ahead, what's
But
the?
if we're moving ahead, normally it is, we give them, as soon as we award the contract, there's notices goes to all the residents. Then as construction moves ahead, then there's some signs for no parking and so on, and they'll be informed on a regular basis.
Sounds great.
So at least 30 days in advance.
Excellent, great. I just dotting the i's, crossing the t's, want to make sure.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second.
But we were going to repeat the motion.
The motion would be, and I'll let the councilman,
Well, that we approve the revised list of projects
with the revised attachment,
with revised attachment and request our mayor to meet with our city manager with representatives from the city of Orange, including the mayor of the city of Orange, to discuss a maintenance agreement with the city of Orange, particularly since we, were gracious enough to allow the meets to be built through Villa Park, if they could maintain their road that they needed, that'd be helpful. But anyway, if you could work with the city of Orange on that and approve this revised, that's the motion.
Motion and a second. Okay, let's all vote, please.
it passes by a 5-0 vote.
Okay.
The amended list passed by a 5-0 vote for clarification.
Thank you. Now we will discuss the city manager report.
The city manager report is the monthly report that I provided to give you a list of what's going on, et cetera. The last updated April 16th. Available to answer any questions should be so inclined.
Comments, questions? Okay. Moving on to item 16. Now we will discuss councilmember requested item regarding payment reimbursement for travel and meeting expenses policy update.
You'll recall that, I want to say in January, the city council took action and addressed the travel policy. A couple of items that they wanted was that, after considerable discussion, that the council member traveling is exclusive to the local Southern California area. To the extent that it went beyond that, it would require approval from the city council in advance, and a specific council. Secondly, the payment is only for necessary and actual expenses, and the request for payment, there's a form we were asked to prepare, and also that there's itemized receipts that would be provided and no alcohol would be reimbursed. Lastly, each council member would make arrangements for his or her own travel arrangements. So we were asked to come back with the formal procedure in writing, so we are, in response to that, we've updated our procedures, and we have that attached, both a red-lined version and a clean version for your approval, inclusive of the forms that would be necessarily to move forward. So this is consistent with action taken in January by the City Council this year.
Council members? Questions? Comments? Members of the public? Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to pass.
A second.
Please vote.
Passes by a 5-0 vote. Thank you.
Now we will discuss councilmember requested item regarding the adoption of a code of ethics.
You recall that March 28th, the council, we brought forth a draft council code of ethics that will pertain to staff, members of the committees, and all the associated groups that might be affiliated with the city. At that time, the city council requested that it be taken back and people have further time to review it and the council provide input. So I received a number of comments from both the mayor and Councilwoman Miles indicating verbally what they thought about the draft, which was basically that we're okay with the draft. And then we had Mayor Pro Tem Pitts provided a attachment that you'll see as attachment 1, which is basically a different version of a code of ethics. And I'll let him speak for that in detail. Then secondarily, Councilman Colacott provided edits and appropriate suggested changes to the previous version that was submitted to the council in March. So that is attachment 2. So at this point in time, staff are looking for direction from the council what they want to move forward with. It is entirely a policy matter of the council at this point.
Well, I think I said this last time, last month. When this was originally, the first one was brought forward, at the time Councilman Nelson and I discussed it and looked at it together, and I offered, quite a bit of changes to the original document. First of all, because I felt like the document itself was extremely punitive, and one of the things that I think we want to keep in mind, a couple things we want to keep in mind as we put forth the code of ethics. Number one is that, because we're asking a lot of folks to volunteer for community committees and get involved in the city things, we want to be mindful that they're giving of their time, but at the same time, we don't want to be extremely punitive. While the second thing is, I know we've had some issues recently that we wanted to address, and the first document did not address any of those things that we talked about as a council with regards to trying to insert things that would help us down the road with previous issues that we ran upon. So in rewriting this or researching and rewriting it, I tried to make it less punitive. I tried to make it so that it was very easy to understand and also include the things that we felt like should be included to help us make sure that we had things in place down the road. So I would recommend that we adopt attachment 1, which is the one that I put forward.
I'd like to give you the opportunity to speak on attachment
Okay.
2.
Both the codes of ethics proposed by staff and that proposed by Councilman Pitts have value. And I really appreciate that Councilman Pitts submitted what he did. Your proposal includes a city sexual harassment policy. And I contacted the city manager and I was very surprised, if not astounded, to find that we don't have a specific sexual harassment policy. And I think that's, every organization I've ever worked in over the past 40 years, we've had that kind of a policy. So I think it's something we need to have in place. So I appreciate that you brought that in. I also liked that you provided specific examples of what constitutes sexual harassment. As you mentioned, we've encountered issues in the past, and I think there's been, not everybody is on the same page as to what constitutes sexual harassment, what's okay. And I think it's better to spell it all out so that everybody has a common understanding of what that is. So I really like that, and I know in reviewing the staff proposed policy, I knew that there was something missing, and I think that was it. And I like that, and thank you very much. Although Section 3 and after Section 16 of the staff proposal includes references to personal contact or conduct, abusive conduct, and inappropriate comments, my view is that the prohibition should be explicit as in the Pitts proposal. I do have some concerns about the Pitts proposal, though. It does expand quite a bit beyond just a code of ethics, and I think that's what our mission was. Okay, what the council wanted to do is let's develop a code of ethics. But it also expands into, in addition to the sexual harassment, it delves into defining values and incorporates some financial reporting procedures that are already established in state law. And I don't know that it's necessary for us to include that, repeat that again in our code of ethics. So my recommendation is kind of twofold. First of all, I think the staff recommendation is a good one. This was developed by our city manager I understand, in consultation with our city attorney, and it was based on a synthesis of looking at what other cities have as a code of ethics. So we're, rather than reinventing the wheel, we're building upon what other cities have done to develop a good code of ethics for Villa Park. The staff recommendation is more streamlined in that it doesn't expand into these other issues and incorporation of state law. However, what I would like to do is recommend that we approve the staff recommendation, but also request staff to develop a standalone sexual harassment policy incorporating the approach proposed by Councilman Pitts. In other guidance, that can be gleaned from other sexual harassment policies that have been adopted by other cities, and bring that back at a later date once it's developed. But I think I think what staff has proposed is a good start for an ethics policy, that plus a good sexual harassment policy gets us a long way towards where we want to be. So I think they both have value.
May I?
Sure.
I agree. I definitely can appreciate the input from both Councilman Colacott and Councilman Pitts. And I think the original staff report is a great start as well. And I do also like the sexual harassment section that Councilman Pitts put in. But I think it needs also not just sexual harassment, but any form of harassment. So maybe we can have it come back again with not just the sexual harassment, but harassment in general.
Workplace violence, harassment, that type of thing.
So harassment and discrimination law has been expanding exponentially.
Yes.
With categories added. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. And there are templates we can use if that be the direction.
That would be.
That was brought up actually in the training that I went to in January. They talked a lot about the harassment and all these different categories of individuals that now fit into this protected
And overarching look at EEO would be really important for us to codify, and I think it's a great suggestion by Robbie and Councilwoman Miles and Councilmember Colacott, and I'm sure Councilman Zimmerman was thinking the same thing. So that would be great if we could have that codified, and then I'm personally okay with adopting the staff.
Correct me if I'm wrong, please, if you don't mind. I'm not sure that financial reporting is a requirement of our committee members as of today. And that was another reason that I added that to this.
It is not required of all of our committee some do, some don't.
So the way you can, the council can designate, though, which committees are required to financial report, file Form 700s in essence. So there is a way to effectuate that without creating another or adopting all of state law into the code. So that's one option. I would just say, in my experience, it's often good to just say you shall comply with state law, because state law changes all the time.
Right.
So like the gift limit goes up every 2 years. Here it's $440. It's currently $500 as of January 1st.
Right.
So you don't catch changes and then there's disconnect.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Councilman Zimmerman?
Sure. So I really like, in particular, the tone of the proposal one, the Pitts proposal. I really like that there was some thought that went into how it sounded, and that's in terms of ethics. I really like that. It's just the other one seems comprehensive but very dry and doesn't catch the nuance that I think ethics needs in some ways. And so for that reason, I really do like the tone and the flavor of the first one, and I think that there might be a combination of, as our lawyer pointed out, referencing state law without calling out specific items for Villa Park, that some corrections that would go in there that would be well-timed or would fit in very well. And otherwise, I really appreciate Mayor Pro Tem, the effort that went into getting this into the process.
If I might suggest, based on what we're hearing, that we not vote on this tonight, that we come back and add a harassment, we simplify the state, comply with state reporting requirements, and add that so that we don't end up with a document that we sort of say, well, now we got 2 documents, we could have added 1, and we could have. So if you now I kind of got the drift of where we're going, I can certainly take using as a basis the attachment 1 and work from that with adding the sexual harassment and adding the general harassment as well, EEO issues, and kind of keeping it with that tone, and come back for the next council meeting, or as soon as I can get it done, something along those lines.
That'd be great.
If that works for you, the council?
Yep, I think we're unanimous on that.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
So that would be just in lieu of voting tonight, but I got direction?
Yes,
which
please.
really gets us
So
there.
attachment 1, that's the original document.
No, that would be
That's Robbie's document.
that would be the council. I mean, if you wanted to be, but I kind of got the sense that there was kind of, okay, we're okay with it, and the tone and whatever. So I mean, that's what I need. If you want to change something, give me direction. But I'd like to have one comprehensive document, and simplified to the point where we're not having to revise state documents, et cetera.
There is, in our strategic plan, we identified what our values were. We've already developed a value statement, and that was one of the concerns I had in the alternative provided by Robbie or by Councilman Pitts, is that Mayor Pro Tem, is that we're once again going back and trying to restate the values. So we've already been there, done that. So if we can focus it on our code of ethics and harassment policy, just try and keep it narrow so that we're not trying to solve all the world's problems at once.
I'm fine with that. It's up to you. I will come back with a draft, and we'll take another look at it and see if that works.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
All right. Now it is time to hear individual council information items, starting with Councilman Zimmerman.
Excellent. So March 30th, the Rotary had a craft project they did with the library. It went off really great. We had a bunch of families in here that that we advertised through Ralph's. We had some great donation. There were art supplies. The community service part of Rotary helped do this, and I got to attend. And I got to say, doing art, especially with kids, is always one of those really, really rewarding things. It opens up that part of your brain that maybe we don't exercise quite as much, and it's fantastic to do. I know Rotary's looking at, and the library in particular is looking at doing projects like this on an ongoing basis so that people know once a month or every other month or once a quarter something like this is going to happen, and then everybody can come together, and it makes a good community bonding event. So I really enjoyed that, and leads me to April 12th, which was the Orange Community Foundation Gala. Orange Community Foundation actually honored Villa Park Rotary and other Rotary organizations for their great work in the community. And they put on a spectacular fundraiser, but dinner, and then an honoring night that highlighted what Rotary's done in the community, which is always great to see. We have a very, in Rotary, in Rotary, you have clubs that fit the size of your community sometimes. In Villa Park, our Villa Park Rotary is much larger than many other cities out there that are bigger in size. We have a very healthy, active community involvement in our Rotary Club, and it was great to see them honored at this event.
Thanks a lot to you, too, for doing that. You were a great help for that.
And then April 13th was the Taste of Villa Park, which was fantastic. Crystal, what a fantastic event put on by Little League, yourself. It was really great to see that and to be able to walk in and see how that was. I really appreciated it. So
Thank you for coming.
that's my report.
So was able to participate in the Medal of Valor lunch, which was just awe-inspiring, and you're filled with a room full of very deserving deputies, and they had the ceremony was gorgeous, and I get so emotional about it, and it was just awesome to be a part of that. Taste of EP, that was a really great event. What was really unique about it is from the first time we did it 4 years ago till now, it's grown to include all of the community, not just our Little League parents. And now we're getting, members of the community whose kids have, moved away and grown up, but were part of Little League. Neighbors in Orange, neighbors in Anaheim, because their kids come over here for our fields. Business owners in other cities are sending, their customers over. So it was it's a great community event, a lot of fun. So I was really appreciative of those that were able to come and support. It's my last one. So hopefully the tradition continues. The Bridges at Kramer, so I'm the representative for that. I don't know if that's something that I'm supposed to say in the beginning, or if I go ahead and say it now, because we are going to meet.
You will be adding it to the list of
Okay.
committees.
So I went to the Bridges at Kramer the day after our last council meeting, and somehow I became the vice chair. So
Surprise, surprise.
Congratulations.
Didn't move quick enough.
I drew the short straw. No, I'm just kidding. I'm really honored to be the chair for that. So that day we had chosen the chair and the vice chair, and discussed different policies and whatnot, and really it was meeting once a year actually. And so again, I opened my big mouth and said, why are we meeting once a year when it sounds like we could get a lot of work done if we meet more regularly than that? So now we're meeting once a quarter. So, and then again, I'm really excited for, my son and I are going to Washington, D.C. on Thursday to kind of putz around and visit before his 8th grade class comes out on Sunday, and we're going to look at tour some things that I know that the class isn't going to get to see, and we'll also take advantage of the fact that I'm going to be in close proximity to some very, I think, influential, hopefully, help for us, so I can see what I can do for our city, and hopefully we'll get some
Good luck,
information.
get the money.
Keep your
Good
fingers
luck with the
crossed.
money.
So I'm excited about that.
Thank you.
That's it.
Okay. On March 27th, Don Wagner invited me and the mayor to attend his swearing-in as the 3rd District Representative on the Orange County Board of Supervisors. Unfortunately, our mayor was not able to attend. He had a emergency come up at work related to law enforcement. It took precedence on that for sure. But the ceremony, which was held at the soccer stadium at the Great Park in Irvine, was attended by approximately 1,000 people, including many elected officials and their representatives. Villa Park looks forward to working with Supervisor Wagner on initiatives to protect and enhance our city. And in speaking with Supervisor Wagner, he's looking forward to meeting with you to discuss how Villa Park and the county can work together to protect Villa Park and our mutual interests. On March 28th, I participated in the League of Cities Environmental Quality Policy Committee in Costa Mesa. The League of Cities staff provided an update on statewide issues prior to the policy committee meetings. And again, there is significant concern by the League of Cities staff that the governor and the legislature, supermajority, are angling to usurp local authority over zoning and land use. So the key issue discussed at the Environmental Quality Policy Committee is the collapse of the recycling markets and impacts on solid waste management in California. So currently our arrangement with our waste hauler is, you know, they expect a revenue source from the recyclables, but as that market is collapsing, that will impact us. I expect it will impact us on our future negotiations on costs. On April 4th, I participated in the American Council of Cities Orange County Chapter Energy, Environment, and Water Committee meeting in Fountain Valley. And the committee received an update on the California Water Fix, which is a proposed project to improve reliability of water supplies via the State Water Project. It was initially proposed as a twin tunnel project. I believe now it's being proposed as a single tunnel project, but it's a project kind of on the ropes. Also discussed was the proposal to tax drinking water to fund water supply projects for disadvantaged communities. And the committee approved the recommendation to the ACCOC board to support use of the state surplus to fund such projects and oppose a tax on drinking water. On April 11th with Councilwoman Mills, I attended the 31st Annual Medal of Honor Valor Luncheon in Irvine, sponsored by the Orange County Sheriff's Advisory Council. And the Medal of Honor Luncheon honored those deputies and employees of the Sheriff Department that have distinguished themselves in the department through their actions. And finally, on April 17th, I attended the ACCOC officer installation in Newport Beach. And at this event, Lori Davies, who's a council person with the city of Laguna Niguel, was elected president of ACCOC. And I had the opportunity to speak with her regarding our shared recognition of the need for the cities in Orange County to work together with the county to find ways to address expected state mandates impacting local land use authorities. So that's my report.
Thank you.
I too attended the Orange County Sheriff Medal of Valor. I have to say those kinds of events are amazing in two respects. One, that we get to honor the people that serve and protect us every day, and they do an amazing job here in this city, along with the county itself. But it's also a great opportunity to network with other city officials, other officers that take care of other cities, and share ideas and learn from each other. And I got there kind of early, and traffic was much better than I expected, and I really got a lot of quality time with a lot of different city officials to discuss things that are going on within their city, so that we could, share ideas and so forth. So it was a twofold thing. The second thing, I attended the Villa Park Little League, Taste of Villa Park. I must say you do an amazing job with that, Councilwoman. But there's a couple other things about that event that really struck me, and that was the jazz ensemble from the high school. Those kids are amazing.
They were fantastic.
The music was great. The principal was there, their coach was there, and they just kind of like sat there in awe and looked at them like this. And I think a lot of us, really thoroughly enjoyed the music and so forth. And it's great to see the entire community out doing those kinds of things. So I really appreciate that. So thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Enjoyed it. Thank you.
I had the incredible opportunity, if you want to call it that, to attend federal court courtesy of Judge Carter earlier this month, along with our city manager and our city attorney. Was able to use one of my vacation days to spend the day with Judge Carter. I learned a tremendous amount about what he cares for and doesn't care for. Thankfully, we're doing well. We're part of the North Spa. We've made very good decisions as a group. Steve has been instrumental in that, and I'm just thankful that we're doing the right thing and setting a good example. Besides that, I want to thank Crystal for throwing one heck of a great party, for her involvement with Little League. I know that this may be your last hoorah, so to speak, but well done. I'd like to thank my council members, our committee volunteers, Rotary, the foundation, our city staff, and everybody for making Villa Park a very special place to live. This is a bit of a surprise, but I wanted to, forgive me, I wanted to dedicate and adjourn this meeting in the memory of first responders who have lost their lives in the state of California, and specifically Sergeant Steve Lykin with California Highway Patrol. He once patrolled the freeways right out here and may have made a significant impact on a lot of people's lives, and he will be greatly, greatly missed. Thank you.
Amen.
We're adjourned.
Before we adjourn, I just want to mention that we have, there'll be a special meeting in early May regarding our budget workshop. So I just wanted the date, if they could people watch the feeder and our website, that will be announced very quickly. But I just wanted to give people sort of a heads up before our next meeting, we'll have that special meeting.
Thank you.
The time on that meeting is 6?
It'll be 6, but I'm just, we'll come out with an announcement so everybody can get.
Got it.
Are we officially adjourned?